In this forest, sound is never neutral. Every movement leaves a trace. Every echo carries information. Here, survival is shaped not by strength alone, but by restraint. Snow absorbs footsteps, branches amplify mistakes, and the air itself remembers what passes through it. What cannot be seen is often detected long before it is understood. In this place, noise travels farther than intention, and silence becomes more than absence. It becomes strategy. Life here does not reward the bold or the loud. It favors those who know when not to announce themselves. Those who endure are not always the fastest or the strongest, but the ones who leave the least evidence behind. This is a world governed by an unspoken rule: to be heard is to be known, and to be known is to be vulnerable. The landscape is shaped by cold and compression. Dense conifer forests stretch across uneven ground, where snow settles deep and uneven, disguising hazards while softening every step. Visibility is limited. Lines of sight are broken by trunks, undergrowth, and terrain that rises and collapses without warning. Movement here is never direct. It is cautious, incremental, and costly. Winter governs the rhythm of this place. Temperatures suppress decay and preserve tracks longer than expected. A single disturbance can linger in the environment, readable to those who know how to interpret it. Food is scarce, scattered, and highly mobile. Prey species survive by detecting threat early, relying on acute hearing more than vision. In this ecosystem, sound often arrives before shape. Wind patterns complicate everything. Gusts shift direction without notice, carrying scent and noise unpredictably. A momentary lapse in control can expose presence long before contact is possible. For predators, the margin for error narrows with every failed attempt. Energy spent cannot be recovered easily. Each pursuit carries a measurable cost. Competition adds further pressure. Multiple hunters operate within overlapping territories, drawn to the same limited resources. Success depends not only on finding prey, but on avoiding detection by rivals. Conflict is rarely announced. It emerges suddenly without warning and often ends quickly. Within these conditions, survival is not determined by aggression or dominance. It is dictated by efficiency, restraint, and the ability to move without altering the environment in detectable ways. Here, sound is not communication. It is exposure, and exposure is rarely forgiven. Within this environment, a young wolf moves at the edge of certainty. It is no longer dependent, but not yet fully established. Its body is lean-shaped by rapid growth rather than endurance. Muscles respond quickly, but stamina is still untested. Experience remains incomplete. The wolf occupies a low position within the social structure. It follows rather than leads, observes more than it acts. Access to food is inconsistent, often delayed until others have fed. Each outing into the forest is both opportunity and assessment. Success strengthens position. Failure reinforces vulnerability. Its behavior reflects constant adjustment. Steps are placed carefully. Weight is shifted slowly. The wolf pauses, often reading the terrain through scent and vibration, rather than sight alone. It learns where sound carries, where snow collapses, where branches resist movement. These lessons are not taught. They are acquired through repetition and consequence. Physically, the wolf is capable of speed, but speed alone is insufficient here. Sudden movement draws attention. Breath must be controlled. Contact with the ground must be deliberate. Even small errors carry disproportionate risk. Biologically, this individual represents a transitional stage. It must adapt quickly or be excluded. Resources are limited, and tolerance within the group is conditional. Survival depends on learning how to exist without disrupting the environment that surrounds it. In this forest, development is not guided by encouragement or protection. It is shaped by pressure. The wolf does not know the rules explicitly, but it is subject to them all the same. And every moment of movement brings it closer to understanding a critical distinction between presence and detection. The days begin without ceremony. Light filters through the forest, slowly diffused by cloud cover and thick branches overhead. Temperature rises only slightly, just enough to soften the surface of the snow without loosening its hold. Movement resumes cautiously, shaped by habit rather than urgency. The wolves travel in loose formation, separated by distance rather than closeness. This spacing reduces disturbance limits, overlapping sound, and allows each individual to read the terrain independently. No single path is reused for long. Tracks are avoided when possible, even their own. The forest records everything, and familiarity can become a liability. The young wolf follows at a measured distance, matching pace, but not position. It watches how others move, how weight is distributed, how pauses are timed, how heads lift briefly before steps are taken. There is no instruction. The rhythm is learned through observation. Deviations are corrected not by discipline, but by consequence. Hunting attempts during this period are cautious and infrequent. The wolves test conditions rather than commit fully. They approach areas where prey has passed recently, slowing further as scent intensifies. Listening becomes as important as movement. The group often stops, entirely standing motionless for extended periods. During these pauses, the forest reveals its patterns. Distant sounds are interpreted. Subtle shifts in wind are registered. Stillness becomes an active state. When prey is sighted, pursuit does not always follow. Distance, terrain, and wind alignment are evaluated silently. If conditions are not favorable, the wolves withdraw without engagement. Energy is conserved. Failed attempts are minimized. The goal is not immediate success, but survival through restraint. Rest periods are brief and strategic. The wolves settle in areas where snow is compacted and visibility is limited. Bodies curl inward to preserve heat, but awareness remains high. Ears remain active. Muscles do not fully relax. Even in rest, the environment is monitored. For the young wolf, this routine establishes a fragile balance. Hunger is present but not acute. Fatigue exists but is manageable. Each day reinforces patterns that seem stable, predictable. The forest appears consistent, almost accommodating. Silence feels natural, unremarkable. Yet this equilibrium is deceptive. It relies on conditions remaining unchanged on prey, behaving as expected on weather, holding steady on no unexpected intrusion. The wolves move as if this balance will persist, but the environment does not guarantee continuity. It only allows it temporarily. Within this calm, the young wolf begins to internalize an unspoken principle. Movement is not defined by speed or strength, but by its impact on the surrounding space. To move without consequence is to move correctly. For now, the forest tolerates this presence. For now, survival seems routine. But routine in this environment is not permanence. It is simply the absence of disruption. And disruption, when it arrives, does so without warning. Change begins subtly without a clear moment of arrival. Snowfall increases overnight, adding weight to branches and filling the shallow depressions that once offered reliable footing. What was firm becomes unstable. Each step now requires adjustment, and each adjustment increases effort. Movement slows not by choice, but by necessity. Temperature fluctuates unpredictably. Brief thaws soften the upper layer of snow, followed by rapid freezes that harden it again into uneven crusts. Beneath the surface, gaps form. Legs break through without warning, collapsing silently, but leaving evidence behind. Tracks deepen and persist longer than before. The forest becomes more readable to prey, to rivals, to anything that pays attention. Wind patterns shift with the weather. Currents funnel through narrow corridors between trees, carrying sound farther than expected. A misplaced step that once disappeared into the forest now travels refracted and delayed, arriving at unintended receivers. Control becomes more difficult. Precision demands more energy, and energy is already limited. Prey behavior adapts quickly. Herds move less predictably, altering routes and timing. They pause more often, listening before committing to open ground. When they move, they do so in short bursts, stopping abruptly to assess their surroundings. Detection now happens earlier. Distances that once allowed approach without risk become zones of exposure. The wolves respond by extending their range. Daily travel distances increase stretching endurance and testing limits. Rest becomes shorter. Decision-making becomes more conservative. Opportunities are evaluated with increasing caution, and many are abandoned before pursuit begins. Each non-engagement preserves energy, but also prolongs hunger. For the young wolf, the cost becomes noticeable. Muscles tire sooner. Recovery takes longer. Small inefficiencies accumulate. A slight misstep lingers in the joints. Breathing becomes more deliberate, less forgiving. The margin between effort and exhaustion narrows. Competition intensifies as well. Signs of other predators appear more frequently, tracks intersecting scent marks overlapping. These encounters are indirect, but their implications are clear. Resources are contested even when conflict is avoided. Presence alone alters the balance. The forest grows more crowded, more attentive. Mistakes begin to surface. A branch snaps under weight. Snow slides from a low limb. Each sound is brief, isolated, but not without consequence. Prey reacts earlier. Paths shift unexpectedly. The environment responds immediately, adjusting to disturbances as if cataloging them. The wolves compensate by reducing communication further. Movement becomes staggered. Distances increase. Even visual signals are minimized. Coordination relies on anticipation rather than instruction. The group functions through shared understanding shaped by pressure, not guidance. Silence once, a background condition, now becomes deliberate. It is no longer simply the absence of sound, but the result of constant correction. Breath is controlled. Steps are placed with increased care. Pauses lengthen. Progress slows further. What had been routine begins to feel strained. Balance persists, but it requires continuous effort to maintain. The forest no longer tolerates presence passively. It reacts, it records, it responds. For the young wolf, this shift marks a transition. The environment is no longer neutral. It actively tests every movement. Survival is still possible, but it now demands refinement. The cost of error has increased, and the space for learning has narrowed. Pressure does not announce itself dramatically. It accumulates. And as it does, it begins to reshape behavior, quietly, efficiently, and without compromise. The first failure is not dramatic. There is no chase, no sudden burst of movement. It begins with proximity closer than before, closer than planned. The wolves have tracked a small group of prey moving along a familiar corridor, one that previously offered cover and predictable wind. Conditions appear acceptable. Distance narrows gradually. As the group advances, the young wolf adjusts its position, attempting to match the pace ahead. Snow gives way beneath one step, collapsing deeper than expected. The sound is brief, muted by the surrounding forest, but it exists. It does not echo. It does not repeat. It is a single interruption. The response is immediate. The prey halts. Heads lift, bodies tense. For a moment, nothing moves. The forest holds still, as if waiting to confirm what it has registered. Then the herd shifts direction, accelerating away from the source of disturbance. The opportunity dissolves before pursuit can begin. The wolves stop. No chase follows. Energy is not spent on a pursuit that cannot succeed. Instead, the group disperses slightly, reassessing without visible reaction. The failed approach leaves no physical injury, but its effect is measurable. Distance must be rebuilt. Time is lost. Hunger remains. For the young wolf, the consequence is internal. The error is clear even without correction. The sound was minimal, but it was sufficient. The forest responded not to intent, but to presence. The lesson is immediate and unforgiving. Subsequent attempts carry this awareness forward. Movement becomes more cautious. Steps are tested before weight is committed. The young wolf shortens its stride, trading speed for control. Progress slows further, but exposure decreases. Another encounter follows days later. Conditions are less favorable. Wind shifts unexpectedly as the wolves approach an open stretch. Scent carries ahead of them, faint but detectable. The prey reacts before any visual contact occurs, altering course, without panic, simply avoiding risk. Again, there is no pursuit. The environment has already decided the outcome. Patterns begin to emerge. Each failure traces back to a small disruption, a sound, a scent, a shift that travels farther than expected. None are significant alone. Together they form a clear signal. Detection does not require confirmation. It requires only possibility. The young wolf starts to recognize the threshold. There is a narrow margin between movement that blends into the forest and movement that separates from it. Crossing that margin triggers response. Remaining within it allows continuation. This understanding alters behavior. The wolf begins to move in shorter intervals, pausing more frequently. It waits for others to initiate motion, then follows precisely within the space already disturbed. It aligns its breathing with movement, reducing the chance of abrupt sound. Muscles tense for longer periods, held in readiness rather than release. Fatigue increases as a result. Maintaining control requires constant attention. Rest becomes less restorative. Even in stillness, the body remains prepared to adjust. The cost is subtle, but cumulative. The group adapts as well. Formation tightens briefly, then loosens again, testing configurations that minimize shared disturbance. The wolves spread further apart, reducing the chance that a single mistake compromises the entire approach. Coordination becomes indirect, reliant on anticipation rather than signal. Despite these adjustments, success remains elusive. Opportunities appear and vanish without engagement. Each near encounter reinforces the same outcome. The forest detects before contact can be made. The prey responds early. Distance reasserts itself. For the young wolf, the significance of silence changes. It is no longer simply a condition of the environment. It becomes a requirement, one that governs every decision. Sound is no longer a byproduct of movement. It is a consequence. The first signs of danger are not marked by injury or loss, but by realization. The environment does not tolerate approximation. It demands precision. Survival here depends not on learning what to do, but on learning what not to allow. The forest has begun to narrow its tolerance, and the young wolf has begun to understand that survival will require more than avoidance. It will require control at a level it has not yet mastered. Pressure no longer arrives as isolated moments. It becomes constant, embedded in every movement and decision. The wolves adjust, but the environment adjusts faster. Snow depth increases unevenly, creating false stability that collapses under weight. Roots that once offered concealment now amplify disturbance. The forest no longer absorbs mistakes. It reflects them. Hunger intensifies. Intervals between successful feeding stretch longer, and reserves diminish. The group cannot afford repeated failures, yet conditions make commitment increasingly risky. Each attempt requires longer preparation, longer approaches, and more careful alignment. Time spent stalking increases. Time spent resting decreases. Fatigue accumulates without relief. The young wolf begins to show signs of strain. Movements lose some fluidity. Micro-adjustments become more frequent, compensating for tired muscles and slower reaction times. Control requires effort now, not instinct. The wolf pauses more often, listening not only for prey, but for its own presence, monitoring breath-weight contact. Encounters with rivals increase the urgency. Tracks intersect more frequently. Scent marks appear along shared corridors. These signs indicate proximity rather than confrontation, but they alter behavior nonetheless. The wolves shorten engagements, avoiding prolonged presence in any one area. Lingering invites competition. Competition increases risk. During one approach, the group advances through a narrow stand of trees where sound carries unpredictably. The lead wolf halts abruptly, detecting a shift in wind. The young wolf, delayed by uneven footing, cannot stop in time. A branch brushes against its flank. The sound is slight, more vibration than noise, but it travels. The prey reacts immediately, scattering before the wolves can reorganize. The group withdraws without pursuit. Energy is preserved, but opportunity is lost again. The cost of hesitation is now equivalent to the cost of error. Frustration does not manifest emotionally. It appears as inefficiency. Timing falters. Coordination becomes harder to maintain as individuals compensate differently for fatigue. Spacing widens, further reducing collective disturbance, but increasing isolation. Each wolf operates closer to its limit. The young wolf begins to alter its behavior in response. It shifts to moving only within already disturbed paths, following precisely where others have stepped, placing pause in existing impressions to avoid creating new sound. This reduces exposure but restricts mobility. Choices narrow. Flexibility decreases. Breathing becomes regulated. Exhalations are timed, with movement released slowly to prevent sudden sound. Muscles remain engaged for longer durations, reducing tremor and uncontrolled motion. These adjustments conserve silence, but accelerate exhaustion. The body adapts, but the margin for recovery shrinks. A brief success occurs when the group approaches close enough to force a reaction that separates one prey individual from the rest. The chase begins, but terrain disrupts momentum. Snow collapses unevenly beneath accelerating bodies. Sound multiplies. The prey escapes into denser cover, using the same environmental complexity that hinders pursuit. The chase ends quickly. This partial engagement leaves the group depleted. Energy spent without reward compounds previous losses. Rest is attempted, but tension prevents full recovery. The forest remains active. Sounds travel. Presence is detected even during stillness. The young wolf sustains a minor injury during a subsequent movement. Nothing severe, but enough to alter gait slightly. The change is subtle, barely visible, but it affects balance. Each step now carries increased risk of misplacement. Compensation requires further control. Silence becomes harder to maintain. The group continues despite this. There is no alternative. Migration to another area would require crossing open ground with even greater exposure. Staying offers familiarity, even if conditions are worsening. The environment constrains options until choice becomes illusion. Repeated threats do not arrive as direct confrontations. They emerge as cumulative pressure, failed approaches, early detections, rival presence, fatigue, injury. Each factor alone is manageable. Together they converge. Coordination shifts again. The wolves rely less on proximity and more on timing. Movements are staggered sequence to minimize simultaneous disturbance. The group no longer advances as a single unit. It functions as distributed presence, each individual reducing its signature independently. For the young wolf, this phase marks a critical transition. Silence is no longer reactive, it becomes anticipatory. The wolf begins to predict where sound will travel before moving. It avoids surfaces that compress unpredictably. It tests footing repeatedly, retreating if instability is detected. Progress slows further, but exposure decreases marginally. Despite these adaptations, outcomes remain uncertain. The environment does not reward effort. It responds only to effect. Precision delays failure, but does not guarantee success. As pressure intensifies, tolerance within the group narrows. Each individual must contribute without compromise. Weakness cannot be accommodated indefinitely. The young wolf senses this indirectly through spacing, through reduced access, through the absence of adjustment from others. The forest offers no signals of relief. Conditions continue to deteriorate incrementally. What was once survivable through restraint now demands near-perfect control. The wolves are no longer operating within a margin. They are operating at its edge. Escalation does not peak dramatically. It tightens, gradually compressing options until movement itself becomes risk. Survival depends not on strength or speed, but on the ability to function without drawing attention, without altering the environment in any detectable way. The system has reached a point where continuation is no longer sustainable. Something must change. Either behavior adapts further or outcome becomes inevitable. The next decision will not allow retreat. It will force commitment, and whatever follows will not be reversible. The opportunity arrives without warning, shaped more by necessity than choice. Tracks appear where none were expected, fresh, shallow, and moving along a narrow corridor between frozen slopes. The terrain restricts escape routes. Wind aligns briefly, carrying scent away rather than forward. For the first time in days, conditions do not actively resist approach. The wolves slow immediately. Movement becomes deliberate to the point of restraint. Each step is tested, withdrawn, replaced. The group does not close distance as a unit. Individuals advance in sequence, allowing disturbed ground to settle before the next movement follows. Time stretches. Progress is measured in body lengths rather than meters. The young wolf follows within the impressions left by others, placing weight precisely where snow has already compressed. The injury alters balance slightly, demanding constant correction. Muscles remain engaged continuously. Tremor threatens whenever tension relaxes. Silence requires sustained effort now, not instinct. The corridor narrows further ahead. Trees stand closer together, their lower branches heavy with snow. Any contact will dislodge weight and create sound. The wolves pause repeatedly, reading the air, recalibrating position. No communication occurs. Coordination relies entirely on shared timing and expectation. As the distance closes, prey behavior shifts. Movement slows. Heads lift more frequently. The group ahead compresses slightly, reacting to subtle cues that cannot be traced directly. Detection is approaching, even if its source remains unclear. The margin tightens. The wolves cannot withdraw without consequence. Turning back would leave deeper tracks, create additional disturbance, and expend energy without opportunity. Remaining stationary risks detection through scent or sound carried by shifting wind. The corridor offers no concealment for retreat. Movement forward is the only option that does not immediately compromise position. This is the threshold. Beyond it, silence cannot be partial. Any deviation will be registered. The forest is no longer passive. It is actively reading. The young wolf adjusts again, shortening stride further, reducing lift, minimizing displacement. Breathing is slowed deliberately, exhalations released gradually through parted jaws. The body moves as a single controlled mass rather than segmented motion. Each step requires confirmation before completion. The prey senses proximity now. Tension travels through the group ahead. Muscles coil. Reaction is imminent. The wolves increase focus rather than speed, closing distance incrementally. Timing becomes critical. A premature advance will trigger flight. A delayed response will lose alignment. The young wolf hesitates briefly as footing shifts beneath compressed snow. Balance falters for a fraction of a second. The correction is controlled, but the effort sends vibration through the surface. It is minimal, nearly imperceptible, but it exists. The prey reacts. Movement ripples through the group, not yet a full escape, but a preparation. The wolves respond immediately. There is no longer time for restraint. Commitment is forced. Acceleration breaks the silence deliberately, now traded for proximity. Snow collapses under sudden movement. Sound multiplies as bodies shift from control to pursuit. The corridor fills with motion, prey scattered toward limited exits. The wolves select trajectories, instinctively cutting angles rather than following directly. For the young wolf, the injury becomes a limiting factor. Speed is possible but not sustained. The terrain amplifies imbalance. Each stride risks collapse. The wolf compensates by choosing a narrower line, one that offers firmer footing but less room for correction. The pursuit is brief. Distance closes rapidly, then destabilizes. A sudden change in direction by the prey forces adjustment. The young wolf cannot match the shift precisely. Snow gives way. Momentum falters. The opportunity slips past, diverted to another member of the group. The chase ends quickly. One prey individual is taken by others. The young wolf slows, stopping short of contact. Breath becomes visible in short bursts. Muscles tremble under accumulated strain. The outcome is clear without explanation. The forest settles almost immediately. Sound dissipates. Tracks mark the passage, but movement ceases. The environment records the event, then returns to stillness. For the young wolf, the point of no return has passed. The moment demanded absolute control and limitation was exposed. Survival continues, but position shifts. The rules have been enforced without negotiation. Silence once, a strategy has become a requirement that exceeds capacity. The environment does not adjust. It simply proceeds. What follows will not be decided by effort alone. It will be determined by consequence. The moment does not linger. After the brief violence of movement, the forest resumes its restraint. Snow settles back into place. Sound disperses and thins until it disappears entirely. What remains is evidence without noise. Compressed tracks, disturbed branches, faint scent suspended in cold air. The wolves regroup at a distance from the site of the kill. No vocalizations follow. Communication occurs through proximity and posture alone. Bodies align briefly, then separate again. Feeding begins quickly, efficiently, without ceremony. Time is limited, and exposure remains a risk, even after success. The young wolf approaches last. Position within the group has shifted subtly, but unmistakably. Access is restricted. It waits, observing the movement of others, gauging openings that may or may not appear. Hunger presses, but urgency does not override caution. Even now, sound carries consequence. When the young wolf finally feeds, it does so briefly. Enough to recover some energy, not enough to restore reserves fully. Muscles relax slightly, then tense again as the forest responds to the disturbance. Distant movement suggests awareness beyond the immediate scene. Other predators may already be adjusting course. The group does not remain. Feeding ends before exhaustion or conflict can set in. The wolves withdraw in staggered sequence, retracing steps only where necessary. Tracks are left behind, but presence fades quickly. The forest resumes its role as observer rather than participant. For the young wolf, the aftermath is defined by limitation rather than relief. The injury persists. Fatigue remains unresolved. The recent failure during pursuit has consequences that extend beyond a single event. The body has revealed a boundary, one that cannot be ignored or overcome through effort alone. Movement in the following days reflects this change. Pace slows further. Participation in approaches becomes more selective. The young wolf positions itself toward the periphery, avoiding roles that demand sudden acceleration or complex maneuvering. This adjustment is not instructed. It emerges through response. The environment continues to apply pressure. Snow conditions remain unstable. Prey remains alert. Competition does not diminish. Each factor reinforces the same constraint. Survival is possible, but only within a narrower range of behavior. Silence becomes absolute. The young wolf no longer experiments with movement. It avoids surfaces that risk collapse. It pauses more often than before, allowing others to initiate action. When movement is required, it follows precisely, reducing individual disturbance at the cost of independence. This adaptation preserves presence, but limits opportunity. Success becomes less frequent. Contribution becomes less visible. Within the group, tolerance remains conditional. Resources are allocated without adjustment. Survival is allowed, not ensured. One morning, tracks diverge. The group shifts direction toward terrain that demands greater speed and endurance. The young wolf hesitates, testing footing, evaluating distance. The cost of following is apparent. The cost of separation is equally uncertain. The decision is not dramatic. It unfolds through delay. The group advances. The young wolf follows briefly, then slows. Distance increases. Visual contact fades. No sound marks the separation. The forest absorbs the change without response. Alone, the young wolf adapts again. Movement becomes even more restrained. Routes shorten. Risk is minimized further. Prey encounters become rare and tentative. Hunger returns gradually, but so does familiarity with isolation. Silence here serves a different function. It no longer supports coordinated hunting. It enables concealment. The wolf moves not to engage, but to persist. Survival shifts from pursuit to avoidance. The forest does not distinguish between strategies. It registers only effect. The young wolf remains present because its impact remains minimal. It leaves little trace. It avoids detection. It endures. The climax of this story is not victory or defeat. It is exposure. The environment has tested capacity and imposed consequence. The outcome is survival under constraint, a continuation defined by adaptation rather than dominance. In this ecosystem, success is not measured by control or conquest. It is measured by alignment with conditions that cannot be altered. The wolves that remain are those whose behavior fits within the narrow tolerances of the system. For the young wolf, the future will unfold quietly. Each movement will carry calculation. Each sound will be weighed before it exists. Survival will depend not on reclaiming what was lost, but on maintaining what remains. The forest continues unchanged. It neither acknowledges the struggle nor records its meaning. It enforces its laws without variation. And within that silence, life persists, reduced, restrained, but ongoing. In the days that follow, the forest bears no sign of transition. Snow settles. Wind rearranges scent. Tracks fade into uneven ground. What occurred leaves no lasting mark beyond the behaviors it reinforced. The young wolf continues to move through the same terrain, but under different constraints. Its presence is lighter now, its routes narrower. It avoids areas that demand speed or noise. Movement favors concealment over opportunity. Survival persists not through advantage, but through alignment. Elsewhere, other wolves move on, adapting in parallel ways. Some succeed through coordination, others endure through withdrawal. The environment does not distinguish between these paths. It accepts only outcomes that fall within its limits. Silence remains the common factor. It is not learned through instruction or tradition. It emerges through selection. Those who fail to control it are removed. Those who adapt remain, shaping the next sequence of behavior without intention or design. In this ecosystem, continuity does not depend on memory. It depends on repetition. Patterns that reduce detection persist. Those that do not disappear. The forest does not reward effort, intelligence, or will. It responds only to effect. Life continues here, not because it is protected, but because it conforms. Silence is not peace. It is the condition under which survival is allowed to proceed.